Okay, Ming here. We had a question again about using the new Fastbooth collab from the last Ben / Fast Stable Diffusion. I'll put that link down in the description below. It changes almost weekly. It's actually gotten a lot easier. I will reference my previous video on how to access your files and things like that because it's a little more involved, and I'm just need to do a quick update for those people who are looking for this update here. So first thing we're going to do is basically going to start off with the very first button at the top, which basically opens up your Google Drive. So it's going to ask you for permission to put that in there. And of course you acknowledge and allow. And of course this collab and everything else is almost identical as far as where you get it. My other video shows you how. Also at the top of this video or page, you can see the link. That link itself will get you there. So first thing I did was did that, and that opens up my Google Drive. So off to the side now. Sometimes you close that and open it and you'll see it again. So there's my drive. And that's how I will access my files. Through here, I'll be able to copy the paths and be able to use that should I need to. So I'm going to put in here, click on dependencies. The next one below the dependencies after that. If you don't have the model already downloaded to your Google Drive, you click on this. And again, we're going to be using the 1.5. So far, I find 1.5 to be less problematic. So as far as creating a lot of different emerging files and things like that. So emerging checkpoints. I just wanted to let you know that I'm using the 1.5 version because very functional. I can produce some blazingly good results from it. So, and I don't have a problem using it. So this is where you would choose. You would choose your models, and it's 1.5. It's no different if you want to choose the other one, but you have to stay consistent whether you're going to use the 2.1 512 model or the 768. Again, I'm going to do this from the 1.5 because it's easier. It's quicker. Again, you can produce some great material from this. In this location, you put in your Hugging Face token, and that's free. And again, all of that's shown on the previous video, which will be linked below this video so that you can click on that and view how to access that and so forth. This is where I'm going to take the 1.5 model. I'm going to have it download from Hugging Face, even though I do have it copied to my Google Drive, but I'm going to just show you how that is. The thing that I did do in here is I am running with premium GPU class with high RAM. I do that for speed. And that is something that you can do. You have Colab Pro and Colab Pro Plus. The Pro Plus is a lot more expensive. Pro, or even just paying for GPU compute units, is $9 for, 100 compute units. It's really hard to say how much time you get on it because it really depends on what you're doing and how much of a demand it is on the actual GPUs. Anytime that I run a model or files that I want to convert into a model, I put it on premium. In this particular case, I'm running with 12 images. I wanted to see how low I could go and still get some really good quality. And so far 12 is looking pretty nice. And so the entire time that this is downloading, and you can see here, if you do have it in your drive, we're going to jump around here. You would simply put in the path here. You would go through here. You'd find out where your path is on your Google Drive. You just paste that down into here. That will automatically go much quicker. But this downloaded it. It says it's done. It's not a problem. It doesn't take that long. In here, I'm going to give it a name. I just call it Glenn. And that's for the session. So sessions are important if you wish to retrain a session later. So you give it a name so that you can come back to it and say, I want to train session Glenn, or I want to train session Cindy or Sally, or whatever else you happen to be doing. The session link is optional. Again, that's all going to be put into your folders over here, and you can link that if you need to. But we're going really simple. Just give it a name, whatever you choose. And again, they've made this really easy. In here, and of course, model 1.5, if you are using 2, you would jump to there. 1.5, it tells you right here how to name your files. Basically, you give it the name, give it a space, give it a parentheses, open parentheses, the number of the file, number 1, 2, etc., close parentheses, and then .jpeg or .png. I use .pngs, which works just fine. I've used JPEG as well. JPEG always have JPEG artifacts. They're 512 by 512 images, so unless you're using over here the 768. But I'm using the 512. Just name them like that. Name space, open parentheses, your number, close parentheses, and then .jpeg or .png. You name each of your pictures like that. Here they ask, typically you can have as many as you want. That just means it's going to train a lot longer. You will have to do other things as far as increase your text encoder training steps and so forth. We're going simple, we're going fast. I used 12 images. Okay, so over here I will show you. These are the simple 12 images. Now, if I have more variety in these images, then I'll be able to do more accurate poses later on, things like that, from different angles. So you want to have some variety. I didn't have much variety here. Again, I was doing this really fast. Just put them in. I cropped them to 512 by 512. I quick erased people behind and out of the scenes because you only want one individual in the scene if that's what you're training. We're going to create or load the session. We would enter the name if we were going to come back to this and load a session, but I'm going to create a session, named it Glenn, using model 1.5. I'm going to just click that, very quick. We're going to scratch that. I'm going to call it Glenn 2. So I started doing that and then it came up with an error because it wanted to, it assumed I was reloading a session because I'm using the same session as I had before. I didn't erase that, which I forgot. So changing the session to Glenn 2 right now, that will now create a new session. Boom, really fast, nothing to it. If you were using the same session and you clicked on that and you came back to it, it would ask you where the session is located on your drive and it would continue then. It's really nice, it's easy to do. So here, I'm using this location. This is my images folder optional. So basically this is where the training images, the 12 images that I want to train are basically in this folder. This is what I've named it. It's on my hard drive here, my Google Drive. I basically copy the path, paste it over here, and I'm done with that. It says removing existing instance images. So if I wanted to keep the existing instance images, then I would uncheck this. Okay, so that would be ones that I've already trained. So these are my instance images, the ones that are going to be trained. The 512 by 512, 12 images that I've got. Again, use 30, use 50, etc. You can choose as many as you wish and test it out and see what you get. If you were having it do it for you, you would tell it to crop the images, meaning you hadn't prior cropped images or anything like that. You just want it to take it and do the work for you. Then you would tell it what size you want. And of course, we want 512 right now because we're using the 512 model. I turned this off because I'm already got mine cropped, did all the work. I'm not going to remove the instance images that I've already got in there because I've already got them in there. It's taking those images, loaded them in. That's all set. It's ready to go. Now, these are concept images. I am not using a concept. I'm taking a human being and I am training it on the human being set of images. Won't even use this. This is not a concept. Don't need to use this whatsoever. Ignore it. Go down to the training. Start Dreambooth. I will not resume training. I'm going to do this right now just so you get a sense of what it takes. I did this because I wanted to test how many steps are required for producing good material. I put in 3,000. Like it says, you can do 3,000 or low and so forth. The text encoder, 350 to 600 steps is enough for a small data set. I have a very small data set here, so that's what I used. It was only 350. I left it as it is. You essentially want relational text to image information so that when you type in prompts, it can associate data sets to that. This is essentially the area where this is produced and trained. So we're going to leave it at 3000. And I found that I can do it very accurately with 1000. I don't need any more than that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to here. And again, resolution is 512. If you wanted it more, you would increase that. We're going to leave it at 512. In this area, it says save checkpoint every n steps. Now, because I was doing 3000 steps earlier, I ran it every 1000 steps. I had it save a checkpoint file, which basically is my model that is a trained image model that I can use to test out and see whether or not it works. So here I'm going to do this as every 500. Now again, I have 12 images. This is the only reason I'm doing that. If I had more, because some of my other models that I've used, I've had 60 models or 60 images and so forth. Here I'm just using 12. I may actually in the future see if I can push that to just a handful of them. So save checkpoint every 500. So every 500 steps, basically, that it gets to, it will save a checkpoint file that I can then download, run into another program, test it, and see whether or not it's any good while it's still training. So that's kind of the nice thing about it. Start saving these checkpoint files, and I'll do that at the 500 point. If you were not wanting to run this because you had other errands to do and things like that, you could run this and then click this, which is disconnect after training. It really does disconnect it. So make sure that's something that you want to do. After it's done training for that 1000 steps, it cuts off and turns off the thing. So you're no longer using the compute units. Okay, so that'll save you some money. Text encoder training steps is 350. Everything else is going to be fine. Run that. It's training the text encoder. So it's going to train that for 350 steps. So that's the first thing it's going to do. And then it's going to jump on it and work onto the actual training the image. This is a good site to see. One little thing, when you put your images, I'm going to go over here. When you have your training images, name them what you want for your prompt. Mine, in this case, is just some unusual name. Normally it's SKS because it's not used by any search engine for or relational text engine. SKS doesn't mean anything, so it's not going to associate. If you put Betty in there or you put man or you put something like that, then that gets you into a whole bunch of problems. Put some unusual thing that the computer just isn't going to know. In this case, because I named it Glenn with a G, so I'm going to put GSKS and just leave it at that. That's what I named each file, GSKS. So it's going to use that name as its prompt. So when you want to have it as a prompt later on when you're rendering your images, you will then use, in my case here, it'd be GSKS space, and then I would put man, because that's what he is. I could put person as well. I could put woman. I could probably put animal. I don't know that it would actually come up with anything. But in this case, because I'm referencing him as a man, I'm going to put GSKS space man. Then I can put either comma, or I can put man as a football player or as something else, or just leave it as GSKS space man, comma, sitting at a table in a dark restaurant, and then put in any other modifiers that I want for the prompt and run it from there. Go back to the scene. What I do for testing, because I'm on a Mac, I use DiffusionBee. DiffusionBee is a program that allows you to run a whole bunch of models. In here, you can just load up with tons of models. And it's really, really nice. Enter your prompts. You've got different options. This is something that's done. In fact, you can do image to image, in painting, out painting, and you get your history also. This history basically is all of the images that I've produced, and it just goes on and on. Saves it to your hard drive, and you can find out exactly what you used in your prompts. Everything about it is headed on each file. It's really nice. And it's specifically for the Mac. I believe they're working on one for the PC. If that comes out, I'll announce that. But you can always go to, well, I'll put the link in the description below for those who are interested. This is a nice program on a Mac M1. It works fairly fast. There is another program, Draw Things AI, for the iOS system for the phones. In some cases, the phone was faster. It really depends on the type of images that you're running. But I'll do an actual comparison at some point. Going back to the training here. So now it's doing the actual training. This is running at this rate. It says 9 minutes left because I'm using really high-end GPUs from Google and a lot of RAM. You do not have to pay for this. If you're using the free version of Colab and the Google GPUs, you will just take longer. That's all. And sometimes you get kicked off. It's used by a lot of other people for different resource demands. So there is a chance you'll get kicked off. I think I've only been kicked off once using the free one, but I've heard other people not have that much luck. So they get kicked off a bit more, especially when they've been doing really long training sessions, like 3 hours, 4 hours, and it kicked them off before the training session was finished. But the nice thing about this, because it's Dreambooth and you can save your session and you can save the actual steps. So you can save your checkpoints and then come back to it later. And you really haven't lost that much if you do get kicked off. That's the cool thing about this. So we are going to come back to this and we'll show you what to do after this is done. If you do have the Google Colab Pro and you're paying $50, you really don't have to. I mean, unless you're needing the extra space, you're needing the extra compute units and a bit more top-end GPUs consistently, that sort of thing. It's really up to you whether or not you need that. But if you're just doing checkpoint files, you're creating these type of things where you're running Stable Diffusion to run images, the free version works really well. It really does. I haven't had a lot of problems with that at all. What I do because of the amount of time here is I just compute whether or not, okay, if it's $9 for the 100 compute units, I just think, okay, well, I adjust what I use for food, or I adjust for how far I'm going to drive. So you make compensations. So I know some people pay, $8 for a coffee. It's just don't eat coffee that you would normally get. Say this equals 100 compute units. If you look at your cup of coffee and say, this is 100 compute units, I could actually put this aside, drink some water, or make some, coffee at home and run 100 compute units, because after a while, this sort of thing is addictive, to me anyway, and to other people who said, oh no, some new changes, and I just was going to go to sleep, when new information or new models came out or things like that. We have our involvement. Once the training is finished, it finishes it at 1,000. Then what it does, it says done. The CPU model is in your G drive in the sessions folder, which I spoke about earlier. So you can actually test the model. It'll run automatic 1111. And again, I'm running model 1.5. I want it to update the repo. The session name, I'm going to leave it blank because it's going to do the one that I just trained. Okay, so automatic 1111 is finished. I'm going to put that in. It automatically enters the file that you just did. So GSKKS man, sitting in a dark cafe, drinking, helps if I spell it, coffee, studio lighting. There's a ton of other things I could put in there, but won't need to. Click on Restore Faces, make sure that that's in there. I'm going to bump up my sampling steps. We're going to leave it on Euler Ancestral, Euler A. I'm not going to put any negative prompts in. I'm going to run it and just see how this works. And again, it shouldn't be a problem because it's already, I've already tested the 1,000. And there we go. Great picture. And we will go one with his mustache. So, S-T-A-C-H-E. Okay. Okay, not quite. You can get some interesting things. So these are basically the results that I've done before. So using the same steps, you can create movie posters, you can create magazine covers, that sort of thing. So exercise equipment, put them in fake magazines. And the really cool thing about it is if you had images where he didn't have any fur on his face, any mustache and things like that, you'll get to see that. It'll be in different variations. And of course, like here, I put him on a magazine, I think it was Muscle and Fitness or something like that, or he was just training in a gym, And I'll do another video on prompts so people can understand how I get some of these realistic looks. But a big part of that is the images that you use, how you train it, how many steps you use, that sort of thing. And of course here with the ultimate abs and wetsuit on some island, which is actually pretty cool. Another fake movie poster, and I think it was Field and Stream or something like that. It's like a Harry Potter poster. So, and I think this was Soldier of Fortune or something like that. And just another one just outside of his house. Um, and so this is the culmination of bleeding edge technology right now at this point. It's fascinating to see where it's going. And version 2 and 2.1 are out, and that'll be refined, and then they're going to produce collabs for it and other things. They said there's going to be other applications that they're going to put out so that we can access it and make this work for us really well, quickly, and so forth. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do have questions, please put them in the comments below. I wanted to make this short, but as with videos that I do at night, it's I tend to go longer. Anyway, thumbs up if you don't mind, and subscribe and share, please. Thank you.